All right, so as most of you already know, this is full. Wow. I'm Joseph Wilson, and please enjoy this video, and I will be up to explain further. Thank you.
Well, hi there. It's me, Joseph. In small form, as 516 comes to a close, I want to take this time to share one thing that God has truly broken me free of: abandonment. I'm the youngest of 6 siblings, like the very youngest. The second youngest is that one right there, and he is 6 years older than me. Now, I can't say that I grew up with much lack physically, because I didn't. My dad was a hard worker, and I grew up in a stable enough home. But what I did lack was that emotional belonging from my dad, my brothers, and my friends. I wasn't the athletic type when I was growing up. I didn't even like sports. I wasn't good at them at all. But my dad and brothers did, and my dad and brothers were really good at them. So that always drove a wall in my relationship with them. Because here I was, wanting to be with my dad and my brothers, the men I looked up to in my life, but ended up being ashamed and embarrassed because I failed at the one thing they mostly enjoyed doing. So I looked for validation in my male friends. Even then, I didn't really feel myself, as other kids saw themselves as Superman or Iron Man, main characters of their own lives. I didn't. I always felt like a side character, an extra of like a C-list movie. I barely had any confidence in myself and would claim to any sort of friend group no matter how bad the group was for me, just so I could have people in my life who actually cared. I always hid behind a happy class clown mask, which led to a lot of insecurities, which traveled to my later years. Speaking of my later years, so a big part of my insecurities growing up were my looks. I was a very cute kid, as you can see here. Then, in my opinion, I wasn't. My thoughts were also confirmed by my brothers and my friends because they would tease me about being a fat kid. Back in the day, my sister used to tell me that it was just baby fat. But like I knew she was only saying that to make me feel better, because this was not baby fat whatsoever. But when I was in my second year of high school, something changed. I looked in the mirror one day and said, "Wow, you're cute." Along with girls starting to notice me, I now found a new way to get validation. So I got a girlfriend. And another girlfriend. And another girlfriend. And another girlfriend, and you get the point. I didn't want to be alone. It was an actual fear of mine. So I took it upon myself to make sure that I was never alone, fooling around and dating any girl that had the slightest bit of interest in me. And all of that was great. Until it wasn't. High school was over, and I had taken innocence and purity from different females, and I was surrounded by people who only liked me because of what I brought to the table and because I was funny. A lot of other stuff happened after and during that time. Stay tuned for the testimony. So I'll take us to my 516 year. And man, was I not expecting this. I didn't even know I had these issues until God, the inner healing department, and my 516 group brought it out of me. And the root for most of these issues were how I perceived my relationship with my dad. Don't get me wrong, I love my dad, and our relationship is now growing. But for a time, I didn't. I felt like I always had to try to prove myself for his love, and always fell short. And I put that expectation on God, which is why God the Father never sat right with me. But now I learned how much I really mean to him, that I don't have to perform for him. God already loves me more than anyone ever could. That even though I felt alone in life, I never really was. God and 516 have helped me forgive my father, break soul ties, release my life into God's hands, give me a purpose, and have a greater understanding of who God truly is. If I didn't join 516, I don't truly know where my mind would be. I would probably be miserable and feeling like I have nothing to look forward to in my life. I thank God he broke me and moved me into a place where I realized that I needed him. This journey has been humbling and amazing and a fulfilling experience, and I wouldn't trade it. I know this is where I needed to be, and I can't wait to see where God takes me next, because I trust him and I know he has my best interest at heart. So yeah, I'm able to say that my fear of abandonment is gone, and I know that I no longer need to look for validation in man because God's love is more than enough, and plus, He provided me with a great family, group, and friends. Thank you for listening, and I hope this really touched somebody. Have a great rest of your guys' day. Now, other me will explain in more detail how God broke all of these things off of me during 516. Who, me? No, not you. Him. I mean, us. Get out of here. Take it away, bigger me.
Thanks, Mini-Me. Yes. So, as Mini-Me obviously explained, there's a lot of things that I touched on in a video that were the main things God had to break off with me during 516. Those were hiding my true emotions, understanding the Father's heart, exposing my feelings of anxiousness and unforgiveness towards my father. So hiding my emotions was a very easy thing for me to do as I started to get older. As I strived for friends and acceptance, I learned real fast that no one wanted to hang out with a person who was too emotional. So I learned to let things roll off my back, not letting issues or what people said or do affect me. Even though it did, I acted like it didn't and tried to move on or just keep it down inside. During 516, the group broke this out of me. Because it is community, there is no need for a mask or fakeness. But I acted like I didn't get hurt easily. And when we got lessons about an unoffendable heart, I thought to myself, oh yeah, I got that. My feelings don't get hurt, so I already have an unoffendable heart. But that's not what it means. It's understanding in that moment that what the person said or did actually affected you, and then releasing them to God and not carrying that anger or frustration with you. But I didn't want to acknowledge that I actually got hurt because I didn't want to be considered sensitive in other people's eyes. But what really started the process of breaking down that wall was when one night DJ came up to me uh, and read to me Jeremiah 1:5 and told me of my value. That God actually cares when I have my feelings hurt or when someone does me wrong, and that I should too. And that hit me hard because I never had a man speak that into me, that it was okay to share my feelings, and that it doesn't make me less of a man when I do. Through teachings with Pastor Chris, I got to truly see the meaning of God being our Father in heaven. In the beginning of prayer walk, as me spoke about being early in the mornings, I would just say the verse of Our Father in Heaven religiously because I heard that verse all the time growing up, but I never fully understood what it meant. Many different things also went to finally understanding that He is my loving Father. The teachings, which really dived into God's heart all through Scripture that I never really knew or realized, going into inner healing and forgiving and releasing my dad unto God, also allowed God to pour His love into me. And also my personal experience where He broke and touched my heart. We had an exercise one week where we would minister unto God. And in that time, I just thank God for all that He's done in my life and where He's brought me. And I broke down into tears because He connected how my mom, my sister, and my best friend Crystal have all given me a way of unconditional love towards me. And that He has a greater love for me than all of them combined. And it was so profound, and I'm thankful that He did. I never knew that I had suffered with feelings of anxiousness because when I thought of anxiety, I thought of shaking and anxiety attacks. So when I learned that I was anxious of my life, it was unbelievable at first, but then it made, total sense because I felt like I was compared to my other siblings' lives so much. I felt like it didn't matter what I did as long as I didn't end up like my brothers and that I followed how my sister lived. I had to have a plan A, B, and C. And there's nothing wrong with having or working towards a career and a successful life. But the issue was I wasn't putting God in the forefront of them. I thought that I had to do this all by myself, and that this is my life, and I had to make all the decisions. That I didn't have to talk to God about it as long as I give my 10%. I didn't ask God what He wanted me to do with my life, and I only focused on what others and what I wanted to do. But with the inner healing department, I was also able to release my life fully unto God and learning that anxiousness is actually a sin. And I repented and asked God for forgiveness, and I'd never been happier or felt freer than I have in a long time. Not worried about the future because knowing God has his perfect will and plans for my life, but also not sitting around and procrastinating, but seeking him first before I move and to come to him with my plans before I decide whether or not it's for his glory. Lastly, the hardest thing to let go was my anger, bitterness, and feelings I had about my dad. During my parents' divorce, more situations happened that got put into my dad doesn't really care about me closet. In this metaphorical closet, I had things like, my dad loves my brothers more than me. My dad would rather spend time with my friends who are into sports over me. My dad sees me as a burden, etc., which were all things that I have perceived when I was younger and when I grew up, which weren't true. But up to a year ago, that's what I believed. And it got to a point where I never wanted to see him again. And I also made a vow that he would never see my kids because I felt like he didn't deserve to. Not forgiving my dad was the root of a lot of issues I had with intimacy, forgiving others, my self-worth, and acting as what I thought a man should be. So in 5:16, I think that was one of the first things God wanted to tackle in me, to share how my anger towards him has put up a wall with God and that I had a twisted view on the character of God. I had to release and forgive my dad. Even though in the beginning my heart wasn't fully there, God gave me the strength to. And after that, God continued to soften my heart more and more and let go of years of hurt, memories, and ungodly beliefs that I had about myself due to how I thought my dad viewed me. And because of that, I have gained a father that will never hurt me, which is God. And I know he loves me with all of his heart. So that is it. Thank you for listening, and I thank you for your contributions and prayers to my year of 516. I thank you to my mom and my family for your love and support for me all my life. I love you, Mom. Thank you for your time. I'm done.